Hey, good morning, everybody. As PW said, my name is Ryan, and this is Greg. We represent about 2 out of the 25 folks that work at Camouflaj in Bellevue, Washington, and this is our talk. And so we've got 25 minutes, basically, to tell you guys how we failed miserably on the one-touch gameplay of Republique. For 500 of the roughly 600 nights that we worked on this game. And really the talk, like the main theme I thought would be really interesting to go over is that we had a vision. We wanted to create a game that you could play with just one finger. And we wanted to revolutionize the way that people were going to play games on tablets and smartphones. And when you have a vision, and sometimes things just don't work out. And so it's really about going home and feeling like a failure for over a year and a half. And just doing lots of soul searching. One of the things we're going to do in the talk, and I'm really thankful that Greg could make it as well, even though we're very busy working on episode 2, is we're going to go over some of the technical things that we use to power the one-touch gameplay. And we're going to try to have a good balance between creative and technical. And then finally, we're going to talk about how we're able to kind of overcome a lot of these challenges. So again, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come out today. So it really means a lot to us. So the vision really started off with, I had the great privilege of being able to work on huge franchises. Being able to work on Metal Gear Solid 4, being able to work on Halo 4 for 3 years. It was a great honor. But I had these experiences of taking these games to my friends and family, over Thanksgiving, and putting the 17-button controller in their hands and say, look at this awesome game. And they're really excited, and then they're not hardcore gamers. They don't have the means, or they don't have the desire to go to Best Buy and spend $400 or $500 on a console. And it's really hard for them. It was really hard for them to get into the games that I was working so hard on. And I know Greg, used to work at Monolith, and he had the same experience. And so it really got me thinking hey, these great franchises, they're really popular in some countries like Japan, North America, and UK. But outside of that, these are not really international phenomenon. We have to stop kidding ourselves. The best kind of game consoles, they might get to 100 million units, but there's 7 billion people around the world, and we're just getting beat down by Hollywood, in my opinion, in terms of global proliferation of this medium, these games that we love so much. And I actually think a big reason for that is that people have to go buy a dedicated gaming console, and they have to wrap their heads around the 17-button controller that I think everybody remembers when they're playing maybe Parappa. It's really hard to remember what these different signals or little symbols on the controllers are. So that was really irking me when I left Microsoft. But I also saw that there's, right now we're getting close to 800 million iOS devices around the world. And they're getting into these big markets, developing markets, that we just didn't have access to, working on PlayStation, working on Xbox. Markets like Brazil or China or Russia, which actually happens to be our third most successful market for Republique, actually, which is just awesome for us. So we wanted to go on a platform that had global proliferation, these kind of Trojan horse devices. And we really wanted to just show our game and have our message be experienced by people around the world. And the last kind of linchpin to this vision was I really felt that instead of 17 buttons and all these different commands that people have to remember, it should just all be able to be played with one finger on these touchscreen devices. We were inspired by games like Infinity Blade that I felt was doing it right, and we were really discouraged and just ignored games that were doing it wrong with on button, the virtual joysticks and things like that. So the vision behind the game, we knew we wanted to make a game about a woman named Hope who's trapped behind totalitarian lines, and that she calls you on these devices and she asks for your help. And we knew the game was going to be about surveillance, and we have a lot of things that we want to say when it comes to a surveillance state, or at least just get people thinking about that kind of thing. And so from the narrative design perspective, we knew we wanted to do these things. And so in Unity, the first thing we ended up doing was, hey, we're going to prototype some ideas, and we're going to put the camera in Unity as a surveillance camera. And here's a screenshot of one of our early prototypes. And boom, the game starts looking like Resident Evil 1. And I'm really excited in terms of not graphical fidelity, by the way, but in terms of, the perspective. And I thought, oh man, maybe Republique is like a survival horror game. But as we went through the narrative design process, we realized that we didn't want Hope shooting people, knifing people. Her motivation is all about escaping. She's her own person, and she wants to go to freedom. So the game actually, even though I didn't want it to, it just made its way into kind of a stealth action genre as well. So we had the stealth survival genre that we're trying to execute on. So that's the idea behind the vision. And that sounds like all really easy to do, right? All one-touch, stealth-action, 3D game on mobile devices, no problem.
So yeah, as Ryan mentioned, we had a vision going forward. The kind of vision was, once again, stealth-action, one-touch, which honestly just, right out of the gate is kind of a difficult genre to actually do well. And to add one touch in is even more of a difficult kind of thing to do. So we had to come up with a lot of smart AI and input systems to allow the player to feel like their inputs were actually being received and understood, and they actually felt like they were effective. So this next kind of bit actually is us showing off this early prototype of ours, which was kind of a proof of our kind of core game loop. Having hope, being able to navigate through the world all through one touch. This is very, very early on, obviously. But yeah, so Hope's navigating through the world. We also wanted to show you could hop from one camera to the next manually by also one touch. Also auto switch cameras, which were I think were a really huge thing for us, being able to kind of like not have to handhold every single input. So all was things like air ducts and things, using various things in the world, being able to auto-detect what the player was trying to do, picking up items, all with one touch, also stealing from guards, also knocking them out, that kind of stuff too.
So awesome.
Yeah, obviously very early on.
So beautiful. And then we also worked, so that was about 4 developers for about 2 months, and then we went into a proof of concept phase that was about 3 months and 5 developers. And yeah, we kind of expanded on the idea. We tried to get to ship quality visuals. We had pre-rendered backgrounds like Resident Evil, but that didn't work out actually once Apple started to ship the Retina displays, because we actually realized that we couldn't, the memory couldn't hold these huge files of these super high-res backgrounds.
It's hard to iterate upon too. It's hard to iterate upon.
Yeah, it's really difficult to iterate upon. And so we still had this one-touch idea. You could send Hope to cover here. That players could also, hack the camera still with one touch, but they can also hack, or they could touch the computer here or the recording device here and try to distract the guards and send them to there. And we had all these different ideas, but one thing we realized from the proof of concept is that we had maybe too many ideas and we had too many demands on one touch, is that all these things were supposed to happen inside this one frame. And we had Hope's world where it's more stealth action, and we had the player's world where it's hacking things. It was just too many inputs for our one player input. Too many actions, I should say. And then one thing that came out of the proof of concept understanding is that we knew we want to have really robust cover, and that Hope is alive, Hope is her own person, and players shouldn't have to babysit Hope to do what they want her to do, or to suggest what they want to suggest to her. So for example, if players tap on this side, that Hope is smart enough to attach to that part of cover, and then if a guard was going to come close to her, that she's smart enough that she's going to move away from that guard and try to avoid detection. One of the things we did I felt was effective was that we worked with artists to try to illustrate this. Like, for example, if you tap on the right column, that this is what Hope does, and that she's aware of the guard, and she has an AI, she can remember these things, and that instead of just looking off in that stupid direction to the right, that she's smart enough that she would turn her body and turn her head to look towards these guards. So again, all to make Hope feel like she's really alive.
So this next kind of bit is kind of to speak to the AI and the input systems that we built to support this idea. We ultimately built this kind of like a nav-mesh waypoint hybrid, which allowed us to use Unity's built-in nav mesh, which was kind of like a black box, honestly. You can't really do a lot of navigation cost, kind of like injection. So we ended up doing this kind of influence map idea, which, as you can see here, there's kind of a green, yellow, red color coding, which indicates various levels of safety and a sort of danger for Hope. And in this kind of screenshot here, you'll see that Hope's up at the top there. There's a guard kind of mid, and the red here is supposed to indicate that the guard can actively see these spots on the influence map, whereas yellow indicates that he could see if he turned around. Green is totally safe and fair game. So this is kind of just to show if the end user were to instruct Hope to go down to the bottom left, that she would pick the safest sort of route based on the danger level. This next actually thing is a little video demonstration of Hope auto-detecting where to go without any kind of user input at all. So here we go. A guard's, once again, up top there, and Hope's kind of middle, and this kind of like a circular cover. Is it playing?
Yeah, it's playing.
Cool. So you'll see that it's kind of a throttled update, but the influence map shows both safe and unsafe sort of areas that Hope can auto kind of like evade guards and everything too. The next kind of big thing for us as far as AI goes is we actually use this Fear 1 AI system goal. It's a goal-oriented action planning, and it was originally introduced by Jeff Orkin at Monolith on Fear 1. It allowed us to kind of do more like an emergent sort of AI system, which allowed the AI to react in a more like realistic, dynamic way based on certain kind of world circumstances and things. In this one instance here, we actually locked this one AI in this meat locker, and he had to basically like figure out how to get out. He's using this kind of like bunch of goals and actions to try to like figure out how to like radio in to get access through the door and that kind of stuff. Input systems. We actually ended up making this like sort of a scalable hitbox input system, which let us scale hitboxes for various items as well as AI like in the world, so that based on like how far away it was from the main camera, you could actually still get a hitbox on something that was like super, super far away and still have it like registered. But just in general.
Yeah, and so, yeah, just in general, I think we had too many ideas, too many actions that we wanted to have the player to input just through one touch. This is just like a taste of some of the ideas and also the things we ended up implementing into the game that all had to be supported by one touch. And one of the things that really we wanted to do really well was have like a robust combat system that was inspired by Resident Evil in the sense that it was kind of like fuzzy math, that you're not quite sure exactly how the hit points worked. There's a lot of tension there, a lot of like kind of learning as you go. And so I really wanted to create a system like that, but it's very difficult, again, to do that without a bunch of different buttons to choose from. And also, I didn't want to have on-screen buttons, and that was a big thing for UI. So my big, awesome idea was that we were going to have this thing that was based on timing, and it was going to have Hope as like cover-based, but also action coming out of cover based on guard patrols. So the idea was that as a guard was coming closer to Hope, that players would then tap on the guard, and then Hope would emerge from cover and attack the guard very cleanly. It'd be a clean and quiet takedown, and players feel great. But if they're delayed and they're late in terms of tapping on the guard, that the guard would notice her coming out of cover and then capture her. And that was kind of like the fail state. So that was really the kind of the idea that we spent a lot of time. The developers worked really, really hard to support this vision. And I failed in a lot of different ways. One of them was just working. I didn't properly work with the level designers to build spaces that would support this vision. I mean, this is like game design fail 101. But for example, like this Prizrak, this guard is patrolling inside this kitchen, but never comes out to give players an opportunity to have that timing puzzle. The second, really, really big problem with this is that if you remember, we were talking about Hope being intelligent and that she's going to move away from cover if the guard is going to get closer. So how am I supposed to have this timing puzzle where she's going to jump out of cover, but she's also supposed to move away when the guard's getting close? Like completely incompatible ideas.
That's like rebalancing, as far as AI goes, constantly like, kind of like systems that like all kind of pull away from the center constantly from each other.
And so one idea we had was, okay, we can fix that problem. You just tap on Hope in this instance, and then she won't move away from cover. Not very intuitive. We had all these ideas about what happens if you just tap on Hope. And this is an idea that lots of people, like playtesters, would come in and give us advice, or the team would have ideas. But we had all these unanswered questions. How are you going to pin Hope to cover? How are you going to cycle through her weapons? How are you going to access her inventory? There's all these ideas. Well, what happens if you tap on her? Maybe she'll say something to you. And none of them ended up working out. And one of them is because its primary reason, and this is illustrated through the screenshot, of there was actually a vent behind Hope. and that players wanted to go into this vent, but Hope is blocking them because of the touch blob. So you have all this frustration about having to move Hope out of the way so you can see the vent, so you can tap on the vent and then send Hope through there. Ultimately, we just scrapped everything. Hope is invisible from a touch perspective, and that ended up being the most elegant solution. But here I'm struggling, and the team wants answers. How are you going to access her inventory? How are you going to cycle through her weapons? And also, how are you going to insert or enter this thing we're calling OMNI view? Coming out of the proof of concept, we knew that we had this idea of like two worlds. One is Hope's world, the game view, where you tap on different things like the door or a cover, and then Hope is going to go there. And that's her world. She is alive in that space. But if players enter this other world that we end up calling OMNI view, that's players' hacker view into the world, and they get their own set of actions based on one touch. One of them is tapping on the guard or on the door, ends up locking the door, not sending Hope there. If you tap on like on the item box, it'll unlock the item box for her. Or you can distract guards by hacking into different objects in the world. And so we got double the amount of actions through OmniView, but there's this big question about how do you actually get in there, because Ryan keeps saying he doesn't want on-screen buttons. And how are you going to do that with one touch? So we had this idea about like pinch zooming in, and nobody got that. I thought I had this amazing idea. We were calling the network view bar at the time, where you drag down this like yellow bar from the top, and it washes over the visuals to go into OmniView. It actually looks really cool, but it was not compatible with iOS in the sense that if you start, as you guys know, swiping on the top of the screen, it actually brings down that notification center, and people were getting really frustrated. And so, but meanwhile, I really want people to do this, and again, my vision was not really aligned with what was actually, feasible or also actually really just good for game design.
So beyond the idea of no UI and that kind of stuff too, we also noticed a lot of our external folks coming in to actually try the game. We're doing a lot of different kind of like input methods that we didn't really see or anticipate, including things like rapidly kind of tapping, RTS, like breadcrumb, having Hope kind of like, rapidly go from place to place, and other things like lazy taps, which are you're doing like a one-touch sort of thing where they like swipe as they kind of like do like a one-touch and then release, which ended up kind of actually in the game registering as like a swipe. So it made the main camera actually move where we wanted actually like one-touch movement. Just in general, we saw that a lot of people were just kind of overall not sort of seeing that their inputs were being recognized, that they didn't really have an idea of what Hope was actually trying to do based on their input. They had no idea what was actually going on. It was kind of like a one-way street all the time, pretty much.
And so this is a recreation of probably night 490, where I have this not only the team is like trying to finish this game and they believe in this vision, that's great, but we've also communicated this vision via Kickstarter, via the press, and people know that we're trying to do this one-touch thing, right? But it's actually not working. And again, imagine going home every night, and I think a lot of people have been there, where you have this idea, and sometimes you start, the self-doubt starts coming in terms of you don't believe that's actually going to work. But I'm really happy to report that like the team really still believed in it, and I just had to kind of, lie to myself or force myself to believe that it was actually going to work. And so really the turnaround, the last part of our presentation is to talk about, how we were able to kind of dig ourselves out of this hole. One of the things I did was I just got out of town. I had to do voiceover recording in LA, and I was trying to clear my head with like all like the clean air of Los Angeles. But I went down there hoping that I can maybe come up with some kind of silver bullet that's going to fix all of our problems. In most cases, those things really just don't exist. But it was good to get out of town and to actually start showing the game to friends. And what it ended up doing was just reinforce the fact that, yeah, we were in serious trouble because these friends would play the game and say, Ryan, the game's not good. And that was actually super helpful feedback. But instead of retreating, which I felt like I wanted to do at some points, I came back to Seattle, and myself and one of our designers, Paul, we decided that we were just going to become the game's worst enemy. And that was the big turnaround, is that we got the team's permission, and I recommend you do that before you do this, but we started to just bash the game really hardcore. Like, we're like, this thing sucks, this part sucks, this is stupid, and we just started to take every single thing, bird by bird, one by one, and try to attack the problems and focus the team's effort on each one of these individual problems. One of the things that we ended up doing was getting really serious about play tests. We would record the play tests. We'd watch them on the big screen. We'd have a shared Google Doc, and we'd share our ideas while the play testers talking through as they're playing. And I would crop out each one of those videos and send them as unique bugs to each one of the team members. And I would go through literally 500 bugs a week, just logging little issues, and we're fixing everything. One of the really interesting phenomenons is that instead of like on Call of Duty or some kind of console game, you're thinking, okay, what kind of input do I want to have on the X button or on the A button? In mobile games I found, or at least in touch-based games, it was more helpful to actually watch how people thought they're supposed to play the game, right? Because they have these preconceived gestures and notions that Apple and Google has taught them. So instead of us coming up with ideas about how players were going to switch Hope's inventory, we would ask them to do it, and we just kind of follow what the natural inclination of each player was. And that ended up being a really big help for us. We'd kind of listen to players, but for the most part, we were more focused on what they were doing, and we're kind of trying to get in their heads about why are they doing these certain things. And then finally, what was really important to me is that while I was very strong in the vision, I had to start kind of giving up on it a little bit, and that resulted in a lot of wins actually for the team and for the project. The vision's not entirely 100% clean anymore, but we actually got to the finish line, and I'm really happy with the end result. For example, how to get into Omni View, we have a button, and it works great. At the top right-hand corner of the screen, I had to psych myself up because I'm like, I don't want on-screen buttons. I want to say there's no on-screen buttons. I want this to be real. But I got myself excited about the idea because I was like, hey, we can make a button that looks like one of my favorite video games. It has like the third eye from Killer 7. So I'm just going to steal that, and I'm going to make it cool. And that really psyched myself up. Also going to OmniView, which is not entirely clean vision because OmniView is supposed to be the player's input into the world and not Hope's world. We actually had Hope's inventory and Hope's weapons available in OmniView, which no player questioned, and they were fine with that, and I had to basically learn these things.
So a nice kind of bit here is this, as Ryan mentioned, there's really no silver bullet when it comes to game design, but one of the kind of like best things we kind of actually ultimately came up with was this idea of action icons, which we have to basically give major credit to one of our ex-Halo artists, Stephen Hauer. But what this was an attempt to immediately show that the end user was having their input recognized, that their one touch was actually being seen and registered. So this allowed us to do things like have Hope take low cover, access items from lockers, that kind of thing. It was like an immediate feedback that hey, we're actually listening to you. Also taking wall cover, trying to spray some Priz rack, hiding in hiding spots, stealing from guards, all kinds of things. Running. Action icons were huge for us. I mean, this is like all kinds of stuff. It was kind of honestly, in a way, sort of like a modernized point and click, LucasArts style kind of feeling. You got like an immediate feedback as far as like what you were trying to do. So yeah, it was actually like a huge win for us.
Yeah, and then we were able to kind of resolve this problem of players like just tapping 100 times a minute, sending Hope to various places, and that was by basically a lot of things kind of like Halo did with console games, like these aim assists underneath the hood. We would do a lot of like code work and try to make the experience more smooth for players. We would not register repeated inputs because that would cause Hope to replan all the time and actually affect performance and also make Hope look really weird. Lazy tappers, about 10% of our players were like this, and you can't reteach them how they're lazily tapping the screen. So we have code in place that makes it register as a Hope input, not as a camera pan. And we were continuing to work on this issue of a lot of press brought up accidental taps being very frustrating, and we have to have this code in place to basically determine whether a tap is actually real or like intended or not. Finally, just to wrap this thing up, this is some of the things that we did as a whole to turn this project around. I still stayed true to the vision, but I had to flex on it sometimes. We directed the team's focus on each one of these problems. We watched how players were playing the game, and we met them halfway. We focused on feedback, visual feedback for the player, and yes, had to bring in some UI to help out. And we built our own aim assists, basically, for the game, in the background for the touch. And most importantly, we just never gave up. After a year and a half of failing, it felt great to see that the game is turning around, and it's so exciting. And it unfortunately usually happens at the last 5% of these projects, right? And I don't want to go home. The team doesn't want to stop, but we have to ship this game by the end of the year. We're going to run out of money, and we're going to run out of this great opportunity to ship this game right before Christmas. So the team's working really hard, and it's all coming down to December 19th, the most competitive day in the App Store history. And we knew that we just wanted the game on the front page somewhere on the App Store. We wanted a little button somewhere, please, Apple, I hope you guys like the game. So you can imagine our excitement when on December 19th after lunch, they refreshed the App Store the week of right before Christmas, and then obviously they really liked the game. So this is just a great win, lots of hugs and smiles, and it was really just really worth it. And it was great to see that I already brainwashed the public into calling out one touch. They understood what we're trying to do, and like having the Washington Post and CNET and Fox actually bring up a lot of these things like we're trying to do. And then finally, the last slide is, we're not done. Episodic allows us to not only update the content, but add new content, and we're continuing to iterate on this one-touch idea. And so we put this on the door when the team is leaving for the day. All these things that we know we have to improve on episode 1, in addition to making all the content for future episodes.
I'll just say that one of the most important things for us is to have the team reconvene and understand the complete one-touch sort of vision, just like through and through. And it's one of those things where every 28 solid days of game production, it's really important to like say the message and re-say like the entire vision, because it's just absolutely important. Our group here is very, very young. Our median age is about say like 25 or so. Half people actually hadn't shipped a game before, but it was just a lot of like young energy, very, very highly enthusiastic, and a lot of flexibility in trying new ideas.
And then finally, if you want to reach out to us, if you have any kind of follow-up questions, whatever, we're around, and also these are our email addresses, so feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for attending, and also for these guys' patience as we go over.